everyone, my name's Aaliyah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be redrawing one of my favorite scenes from Full Metal Alchemist. It was recently Riot Week and that's what I made this drawing for, so I hope you enjoy! Alright, so this video was actually kind of unplanned. I just needed to get something out there, so I'm kind of just gonna ramble. I'll try my best to be as eloquent as I can, but I didn't have any kind of script or outline for what I was gonna say, so just bear with me. I knew I wanted to do this scene for this drawing, but when I started I realized it looked kind of boring. I felt that them just standing there in the dark colors wasn't interesting to look at, so I decided to zoom in a bit on the image so I could focus more on their expression. As you can see, I tried to do a screaming face for Roy, but I end up changing it later because I don't think it looks very good. One of my biggest weaknesses is actually drawing side profiles. I usually draw things in a 3/4 view, so the amount of times I redrew these guys was honestly insane. It's definitely something I need to work on, and I also realized that drawing exaggerated facial expressions is something I need to work on as well, because I do different facial expressions, but usually they're not very out there. They're usually just a smile or a sad face, nothing very interesting. In the scene after this one, Roy shoots a fireball down the corridor. I wanted to incorporate that into this piece to make it a little more interesting and to add some lighting. So that's what all of those squiggly lines are in the background. I'm gonna make them into fire or something more like an explosion later on. I know it's kind of strange, but I always draw the clothes on the characters after I finish drawing out their bodies rather than drawing on their clothes first. It's just so I can have a way to practice my anatomy while I make a new piece, so I can work on the things I need to while I'm working on my other drawings rather than doing it separately, which honestly I still have to do. I should work on my figure drawing because I almost never do that. But yeah, I think it's really helpful to be honest, and it's definitely helped improve my anatomy. To make the piece more exciting, I wanted to have Roy's coattails kind of flying in the air and Riza's hair like flowing in the wind as well. I guess it would just be the heat from the explosion. I definitely think it adds more. Like I said, I thought the original version was a little bit boring. I actually enjoy drawing hair flowing in the wind a lot. I think it's really fun. Before I draw hair, especially if it's in an interesting position, I'll do a super rough sketch just so I know where the hair bunches go and it doesn't end up looking messy or out of place. I already did this with Roy, but after I finish the hair, I'm going to do it with Riza as well. Once I finish doing like the thin lines of the liner, I'll go over and add thicker lines to make it look more exciting and interesting and dynamic, because I find line art can get a little flat if you don't add different line weights. I'll usually do it where the light source, near the light source, the lines will be thinner, and away from the light source, the line will be thicker. I don't actually know if I did that for this drawing. I feel like I just kind of did it where the shadows might be. It's like where her arm touches her body. You can see the lines are a bit thicker. Okay, now we're moving on to the flat colors. I actually said this in my last video, but one thing I've really been wanting to work on is not picking colors from a picture or editing my art to look more saturated or more dull and then color picking from there. I really want to work on just understanding which colors I need to use right off the bat to fit the atmosphere I want to create. So for this, I wanted to use darker colors like black and brown and a really dark red, but I wanted them to be very saturated, so it went with the explosion in the background. I always like to shade the background before I shade the characters because I really don't like drawing backgrounds, so I just want to get it done and over with before I get tired of the drawing. I knew I wanted to have the fire explosion in the background, but I didn't exactly know how I was gonna do it. I've only drawn fire one other time and it did not look good, so I really struggled with this. I decided that I would do an explosion because I felt it would be easier for me to draw, and the more circular shapes would just be more clear to me. I don't know why, but like the shape of fire, the wisps and stuff, make it very hard for me to draw. I'm actually super proud of how this turned out though. It took a really long time because I had to keep going back and forth. I looked at a reference and then I just kept adding different shades of red, orange, yellow, and then like dull and more saturated versions of the color, and closer to the middle of the explosion, the colors would be lighter, and further away they'd get darker, and then in between the little half circles, you'd have like a really saturated orange. I think it ended up looking really good, and I'd be happy to draw an explosion again. It was kind of therapeutic because it wasn't particularly hard. I just kind of had to keep going over until it looked right. The rest of the background wasn't particularly hard to do. I mean, it was just a wall and some bricks. So after the long days of doing just the explosion, it was kind of nice to relax with the simple background. Once I finished with the background, I added a perspective blur effect on the fire or explosion, just so it looked like it had movement and it was going outwards. I actually really like how it turned out. I think that it definitely made it look more realistic because that's what it would be in real life, or if it was a shot from a movie or something. As you can see here, I was editing Riza's face a little bit. As I said before, side profiles are not my strength, and I thought she looked kind of funky. It sucks to notice this stuff when you've already done all of the flat colors and the line art, because it is kind of difficult to change and you have to end up recoloring some things. But I think I figured it out. It's not perfect, but in the end, it looks fine. Roy's coat was a lot of fun to draw. I was playing around with the colors and the folds. Sometimes I add more folds than necessary, but I really like drawing them, so oh well. When shading things that are black, like Roy's coat or his hair, rather than using gray to shade, I'll use a dark blue or a dark purple. I think it adds a lot more life into my drawings, and I used to shade with gray, but I think this looks a lot better. Another tip for shading, whether that be clothing or skin or hair, is using different shades of the same color. So for example, with Roy's uniform, it's blue, but I decided to use different shades of blue. So some that are more purpley or ones that are more like turquoise. Just again, it makes everything look more interesting and dynamic and real, and it really brings life into your drawings. So give it a shot next time. My last step when shading a character is to add a multiply layer. So this is to add a little bit more shadows and make it look more interesting. So for this one, I did a dark purple kind of multiply layer, and I just added some shadows over his eyes to make him look more sinister, and the part of him that was facing away from the fire. Then I'll add an overlay layer to add some extra lighting. Again, for this one, I just used red, orange, yellow to make it look like the fire was reflecting off his coat. I don't have much else to say about this because I kind of just repeat the process with Riza, so I'll see you at the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as follow me at alleyflower88 on Instagram. Bye!